Recording in progress.
I have to accept. Okay.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So I don't need that anymore. Oh, sorry, it took a second there. I had to find my glasses so I could read your phone number so I could text you the thing. So
Well, I'm glad to connect.
Yeah. All right. We're recording. All good. And let me bring up the document again. Okay. So we were talking about this event summary document, and we'd gone through maybe the first two paragraphs.
Yeah. So I whoops. I need to plug my phone in. Sorry, let me plug my phone in. Will this work if I go horizontal?
Yeah, it'll just flip.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I haven't seen this event summary document before, and I cannot validate the accuracy or that it's official, but many of the terms and details in here seem to be correct and familiar from my experience. So what I can offer is an interpretation or sort of a translation of the military, sort of the way it's worded and what they're talking about here. So, at the top, they're talking about the aircraft from the different squadrons. So the 110 and 100 would have been our aircraft, Commander David Fravor and myself. 303 and 305 would have been Legacy Hornets, and 401 would have been a single seat Super Hornet. So it sounds like everybody was out and airborne at that time. And it says that upon takeoff, we were vectored by Princeton and Banger. So Banger would have been referring to the E2 Hawkeye, which is the airborne controller. They have the big radar dish on their aircraft, and who we would have expected to provide our air traffic control, command and control during our exercise, our training intercepts. And so Princeton is the USS Princeton, who interrupted that training to provide the real world intercept. So to intercept unidentified contact at 160 at 40 nautical miles. So that's referring to the bearing and range. And here it has a latitude and longitude. Again, I haven't looked those up on a map, but I'm assuming that that's off the coast of Southern California.
Yeah, they're in the same rough area that we've been talking about.
Okay, and then I think it's referring to the location of the Nimitz. Normally, we wouldn't publish or advertise the exact location of a nuclear aircraft carrier.
Right.
So, after the fact, it's fine, but in real time, this sort of information would be sensitive and close hold. So the Princeton informed Fast Eagles that the contact was moving at 100 knots at 25,000 feet. So that, I think, is what led us to believe that maybe it was folks smuggling drugs up the coast or some other nefarious activity in a small plane, Cessna or Piper, going slow. 100 knots is fairly slow. And but it's unusual that it's at that high altitude. So 25,000 feet would be pretty high if you were smuggling drugs.
Yeah, and that's really slow for something traveling at 25,000 feet. I mean, it seems very unusual.
Yeah, exactly. So, maybe just kind of the first question mark is going off over our cockpits of trying to figure out what's going on and what are we supposed to do about it. Okay, so second paragraph, Fast Eagles 110 and 100 could not find the unidentified airborne contact at location given by Princeton. So that is referring to when the Princeton is seeing our radar points on their radar scope, what is called merge plot. So as they see the range countdown, there's a point at which they say merge plot, and that tells us as air crew, as we get closer, to start some different radar mechanics with our own aircraft radar, and then also our different scan patterns, looking outside more and trying to pick up a visual so that we can merge and potentially engage with this.
Okay.
So again, we're scanning outside and looking, and this is when it says Fast Eagles spotted a large unidentified object in the water at 1430. So I would say, this is suggesting that there was, in fact, something there.
An object.
An object, it's there was churning and there was something there, but it was very hard to tell, you know, was it sinking? Was it coming up? Was it a reef, you know, where the water was sort of breaking over it? But it's hard to tell whether it was related to what we saw then shortly thereafter, or whether it was unrelated and just happened to be in the same area. But it was that churning water that directed all of our eyes into that same spot, and how I at least picked up the visual of the Tic-Tac.
Yeah.
Pilot saw steam, smoke churning around object. So I did not see steam and smoke. I did see churning water and water disturbance, sort of roiling. But I wonder where the steam and smoke came from.
So this is where it's saying like pilot saw and then pilot saw. I mean, do you recognize any of this as stuff that you said to somebody in your debrief, or do you think this is from the other pilots?
It might be a compilation. Again, this is the first time I'm reading this.
Okay.
And so, you know, it could be, I don't know. I don't know where these specific details are coming from. And it could be that one of the other 3 people involved saw something that looks steamy or smoky coming up. Pilot describes object initially as resembling a downed airliner, also stated that it was much larger than a submarine. So I would say that it was about the size of a large aircraft fuselage. So it wasn't a pure cross, but you know, that my heart sank, and I thought perhaps we were on scene for search and rescue for something that went down, because that initial shape and size was like, oh shit, an aircraft went down.
So
here
you didn't see the wings of an aircraft, just like what looked like a fuselage?
Right. So it would have been sort of that oblong shape.
Yeah.
That's the shape of the water that was churning.
Yeah.
But I didn't see the clear, sort of like the water bottle.
Well, yeah, we know it's like a 737 without wings.
I should really invest in some Tic-Tac props.
Yeah, I use my iPhone case. It's very Tic-Tac shaped.
Yeah, that's really good.
You can do 2 different sizes as well. It's like the small Tic-Tac and long Tic-Tac. Actually, out of these 2, which one resembles most in your memory? Would it be like more like this or the longer one?
Oh man, I don't know. Probably the shorter one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
More Tic-Tac like, I guess. All right, sorry.
Okay. While descending from 24,000 feet to gain a better view of the unidentified contact in the water, Fast Eagle 110 sighted an airborne contact, which appeared to be capsule shaped, wingless, mobile, white, oblong, pill shaped, 25 to 30 feet in length, no visible markings and no glass. 5 nautical miles west from the position of the unidentified object in the water. So this wouldn't be describing my account. You'd have to ask Commander Fravor if this is describing his account. And
I don't think it is. I mean, he said his was right over the thing in the water, which is what I was saying earlier. This is the kind of the big discrepancy with this account, which is why people, have suspicions about whether it's accurate or not.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this might, if it is Commander Fravor saying he picked it up before it crossed over the water disturbance area, then that would account for why he had a longer visual contact with it. But for me, I didn't pick up visual until it was the fact that there was this disturbance in the water that helped me, because the Tic-Tac was so fast and so relatively small to this large ocean that we were looking at. If it hadn't been for the roiling water, I don't know that I would have been able to pick up a visual.
You saw it cross over the water, and that was the first you saw of it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and oftentimes, so when we're taught to scan, sometimes we're taught to just sort of fix on a position so that we can see relative motion around, right? Because if you're moving around or looking, your eyebrows are looking. So I think that the fact that I was looking fixed at the roiling water, and then this, object crossed in front of it is what helped me at least pick up a visual and track it for those 10 seconds or so that I tracked it. Capsule, altitude 4,000 feet at course 300, passed under fast eagle 110. So altitude 16K, fast eagle 110 began turn to acquire. While 110 was descending and turning, capsule began climbing and turned inside of fast eagle's turn radius. Pilot estimated that capsule achieved 600 to 700 knots. Fast eagle 110 could not keep up with the rate of turn and the gain of altitude. 110 lost visual ID of capsule and haze. And I know there's a lot of questions about the haze. So it was a clear day, calm water. And we could clearly see, but as you get further towards the horizon, then there is a haze, right? Like a marine layer of haze. And so I don't know how else to describe it than to say, like, the further off you get, the less crisp and clear the picture.
I know. I think they just hazy.
In,
I mean, that's in photography, we have dehazing where you take that out. And so it's just, as things get further away, they're dimmer, essentially, lower contrast, like you say.
Yeah. So, that's, I don't know how else to describe that. Last visual contact had capsule at 14K heading due east. Neither fast eagles. So all of that sounds like a am I going to testify that that's the exact altitude and that's the exact bearing and the exact range? I can't at this point. It's been over 16 years, and that's again why I would defer to the written notes that were taken immediately following and in the closer years. But it sounds generally accurate of the way that he turned and it turned, and it did speed up, and how quickly we lost visual.
And that sounds like a pretty short thing, like you were describing, like 10-second encounter.
Yes.
And what is described in that paragraph where he began turn to acquire, from there to losing visual ID, could that all fit in 10 seconds?
Yes. So this whole paragraph here of capsule passing under, fast eagle turning to acquire, descending and turning. That's, I mean, this all sounds like, he came in and then it just happens very quickly.
Right. Again, I don't want to say this is like the definitive account, because a lot of people have been suspicious of this because it doesn't really have the provenance, but it looks official and a lot of it matches.
Sure.
So trying to figure out what matches and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Neither fast eagles 110 or 100 could achieve radar lock or any other means of positive ID. Fast eagle 100 was flying high cover and saw the engagement by fast eagle 110. So that's me in 100 with Melissa. Fast eagle 100 confirms 110 visual ID. 100 lost contact in the haze as well.
It's like they're talking for you there.
CPA of aircraft 110 from contact 4,000 to 5,000 feet.
What's CPA there?
Closest point of approach, or how close did they actually do it? 4,000 to 5,000 feet. That's pretty close.
About a mile.
And in aviation terms, that would be combat spread for us. So that would be what we would fly around for formation. So this would be, I know a mile sounds far, but in the air, it's actually pretty close. Fast Eagles, Devils, and Hobos performed 8X and Mullet after vector from Princeton toward unidentified contact. Each performed 1 run. Fast Eagle VID 2 groups. So, I mean, that all sounds like a normal report wrap up.
Right.
So that, you know, again, I can't confirm and validate this as being official, but these little details that are included make me think it at least appears to be including the kind of detail that would be included here. And they also include, so Raven would have been our EA6B, the Prowler.
So this is basically talking about the exercise that carried on after this
exactly.
encounter. Did you participate then in exercise afterwards, or did you return back after the encounter? Or no, there was the going to the cap point.
Yeah, so they're saying that we performed 1 run. So at this point, the concern would have been fuel.
Yeah,
we would have, with this divert and pulling around, we would have spent a lot of the gas that we would have needed for these training runs. But it looks like we were able to get at least 1 run off. I'm sure that none of us were really in the mental, it wasn't quality training.
Right. Yeah, it must have been very distracting, obviously, because you just had this whole variety of things that you thought were happening, and then you get to carry on. But I guess that's good training in a way, because it's everything you have to do in the real world. So they talk about, and I think Fravor talks about it, like the objects appearing at the cap point, and you talking about that on the radio. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so as soon as we lost visual, we would have said, we did say on the radio, and I don't know who in the flight said it, if it was Commander Fravor or his WSO or my WSO, but somebody said, lost contact, do you have a hit? Basically asking the controllers, do you see we've lost visual? And that's when the controller said something to the effect of, you're not going to believe this, but it's at your cap point.
Right.
So that would have been on the other side of the airspace, and didn't make sense in terms of a time distance problem of how it would have done that. So either it was supersonic and able to get there super fast, or it dropped off and something else popped up at the cap point that had the same radar signature. Again, I'm not qualified to make that analysis or to provide those details, but what they saw was our Tic-Tac disappear from our point of engagement and then reappear at this pre-briefed cap point that we were supposed to use for our training exercise.
Do you remember when maybe in the debrief or whatever afterwards, them talking about tracking it after you got to merge plot and it coming down to the water? Because if it started out at 25K and there was at a low level, would that give them separation so they could tell that you were still up high and it was down low? Did they even detect that, or is that possible to detect?
So I don't know if that was communicated. When I picked up a visual of the Tic-Tac, it was very low. So it was right above the water, and it's definitely not up at 24,000 or 25,000 feet where it started off. In this account.
You would have been at 25,000 feet there, because you would have come in at what you thought was co-altitude, or would you have above or below it?
Again, I'd have to look back to those reports that were taken in terms of what was our specific altitude, but 20-ish thousand feet would have been what we were transiting at. That's sort of a max conserve for fuel, and
so the intercept, if you were trying to intercept something, do you try to intercept it at the same altitude, or do you come above it, or like in this case?
It depends. Yeah.
Okay, right.
It
Yeah.
depends. Yeah. We probably would have come in 20,000 feet-ish if we were expecting it to be at 25. We'd like to look, depending on the conditions, depending on where the sun was, depending on what would give us a better chance at the merge to take advantage of the environmental factors. It all depends.
Yeah. So, you talk about the report and your debrief. That's obviously the best thing to go to. But is that available anywhere? Do you have a copy of it, or is it accessible in any way?
Yeah. So I don't know. And I agreed to talk to you today, and I'm trying to do my best to answer what questions I can on Twitter.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, but I folks have to understand, there's almost 400,000 people in the Navy at any given time, and each person plays a very small role. So in November of 2004, I was a lieutenant junior grade. So there's ensign, lieutenant junior grade, and lieutenant. So I wasn't even like a fully trained, sort of competent, I was still very green and young, and just the fact that I was flying on the wing of the commanding officer of the squadron and that I had a senior department head in my back seat is further evidence of how young and how inexperienced.
Okay, right. So you were in training essentially with them.
Right. So I was brand new to the squadron, and I was, just trying to land safely on the ship and get brilliant at the basics before getting really into the more advanced tactical and technical things. Sure. Yeah. So that's just a glimpse into who I was when this event happened. But then even after it happened, even though I have been asked to provide debriefs and to go before Congress and talk about this, I don't have this global situational awareness to the event. I wasn't sitting at the Princeton radar scope at the same time that I was flying the F-18. I wasn't in the E-2 at the same time. I had this very small sliver of eyewitness experience and testimony, and that is now over 16 years old. And then I'm not entitled to a bigger insight or explanation. So when folks ask me what's the status of the report, or where are these other technical details, and why can't we have access to all of these other, where are the tapes, all of that stuff, that's certainly, I hate to say it's not my job, but it's not my place to have access to all of those things. And I'm also not motivated to seek them out. So that's the other thing, is that there are folks like you and many of these good people who are on UFO Twitter who are intensely motivated. They just have curiosity and this drive to figure out this puzzle, and know if, I have respect, and I admire your tenacity, but it doesn't scratch that part of my brain. And so this happened to me in November 2004, and it doesn't define me. I don't identify with it. It has haunted me ever since, in that folks like you and other curious or concerned citizens have sought me out. Investigative journalists have, found me and asked for information, but I don't go around trying to investigate it further myself, or try to convince others, that I saw something that day. As a military officer who was in a government aircraft, who was on taxpayer time, I feel a duty and obligation to respond to these inquiries with what info I can provide, but I don't feel like I'm part of the hunt, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
Or I don't.
No, I know you're not looking for it yourself. Yeah, and I really appreciate you doing this. And the reason I suggested we record it, and if it's okay, I want to just publish it unedited on YouTube. Is just to save everybody time. I mean, it saves you time having to repeat the same things over and over again, and it saves other people time having to, like, trying to track you down. So I know a lot of people were curious about, what you thought about this report. And, of course, like the slightly more technical details about what you remember, the nerdy stuff, like, actual velocities and directions and headings and locations and things like that. So I guess the more we can get out in one interview, the less reason people have to bother you in the future, hopefully. So there's nothing else I think to talk about with this particular report. And we were talking on Twitter over the last couple of days about the differences in the time recollection. Like, and you recall the whole incident from merge plot essentially as taking around 10 seconds. I think you said originally 8 to 10 seconds. But then you talked to Fravor and he described what seemed like a much more leisurely encounter, but essentially it seems starting at the same time. So it's kind of hard for people to reconcile those two things. And of course, you just have your recollection, and he just has his. But do you think there's a way of kind of slotting in what you perceived into what he perceived, like it being at the end of it, obviously, with the way?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I was in the wingman position. I was in -2. So, we have 2 aircraft, and my role as the junior pilot, the inexperienced pilot, was really to hang on and not lose sight of the lead aircraft that was piloted by Commander Fravor. So, the merge plot is a kind of a nebulous space. The Princeton is counting down the range to when we might see a visual, but there isn't a hack on the clock in terms of, okay, now is when you are directly, contacting this thing. So it might have been that Dave Fravor picked up a visual a long time before I did. There was chatter between myself and the person in my back seat, Dave Fravor and the person in his back seat, between our 2 aircraft on a radio frequency that was different than the radio frequency talking to the Princeton controller, the Hawkeye, and everybody else outside. So you have at least 4 different sort of channels of simultaneous conversations going on. And so it wasn't until somebody said, look in the water, there's something there in the water, that directed my eyes and everybody's eyes in that same spot. That's when I picked up the visual of the Tic-Tac. And that's when, Dave was already swooping in and having what I would call this aerial engagement, basic fighter, BFM, dogfighting, sort of aggressive maneuvering. It's entirely possible that Dave saw it minutes before that and was just watching it behave in a benign way before he decided to get a closer look. And that I was just way behind everybody else because of my position in the flight and my junior status, and so green and inexperienced that I was, like, hey guys, what's going on? So it's entirely possible that I was just on the tail end. But I with confidence can say that I was visual for about 10 seconds, and that the actual aggressive maneuvering of my lead lasted for about 10 seconds, which would have been a normal engagement with another Hornet in training, or with an adversary, dissimilar aircraft. Our engagements don't last that long. So it could be that when I was following him and I thought we were just, merge plot, that he actually had eyes on. I don't want to speak for him. But if he was moving in a benign way and not making real aggressive maneuvers, I was just following him, alternating scan outside to see if I could pick the visual, but mostly making sure I didn't lose him or hit him as my lead aircraft, and then trying to follow these different conversations on all these different channels. So, I mean, I get where you're coming, that the time discrepancy is
and I'm not trying to I'm not trying to trick you up or anything here, because I know people will accuse me of that.
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out what actually happened.
Yeah, I would say I would defer to Dave Fravor as having,
right.
because he was in the lead aircraft, he didn't have to worry about where I was. It's my job to deconflict with him. He literally had a bigger picture. He had so much more experience. He was a full commander. He was the skipper of our squadron and had just thousands of hours, not just in the Hornet, but also in the Tomcat. So, you know, he really is more qualified as an observer in that scenario.
Sure.
And then because of his position in the flight, had a better perspective. And so, you know, I would defer to him. And then, you know, the other two eyewitnesses to that were in our backseat, the weapons systems officer. And I'm sure that they each have a different
yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. And account.
If they could, if we could actually get to talk to them, or someone could talk to them, it would be great. But I think your WSO, had kind of got a bit turned off to the whole thing after his experience on Fox News, and the other one hasn't come forward yet. So
yeah, this is a real pain in the ass.
Yeah.
No offense to you, but
no, I get it. Yeah, especially when you're going over the same thing and people are making little green men jokes and things all the time.
This is not.
Yeah.
Not
so
fun.
if I could just like get nerdy for a second, what your eyes on portion of the encounter, these 10 seconds, you look down at the white water and you see it whiz over the white water, and that's when the start of your personal eyes on 10 seconds. Could you describe kind of like what angle you were looking at, like in a down and the heading from your point of view? Was it kind of just down to the left, down to the right?
So as I was picking up visual, I was looking over my left canopy rail. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So I would have been in a like a left bank, and I was looking out the left side of my cockpit.
Okay, so your plane is banked to the left, and so you're kind of looking down, straight out, more or less, and then down a bit. Yeah. And the left canopy rail, is that a bit forward of you, or just to the right angles of you?
So yes, it would have been, at my 10 o'clock position, 10 o'clock below.
Great.
I'm in sort of a turn so that I could see.
And would you then be circling around?
I can't give you an exact compass heading or a bearing, because again, I would have been following.
You'd have been, exactly, yeah. So he would have been turning. If you're following him, that means he was circling at that point.
Yeah, and so if you go to his, if in this trying to figure out our discrepancies, and I'd have to go into my messages to double check, but I think I posted them on Twitter.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I
he talks about doing this slow turn. I don't know how to find it. Maybe you can help me find it.
Yeah, let me. I copied them, all four of them, onto Metabone because it's hard to find things in Twitter.
Okay, everything was slow and benign.
Okay.
How do I? Oops. Until I went nose low to get close, and it went poof. Where's the other one? I posted another one.
We can split them up on.
I don't understand Twitter.
Oh, sorry, I thought I had it. No.
Tweets and replies, maybe.
Right. So it says we saw it hovering and flew around the circle and then cut across to get closer. Based on a slow turn rate and slow descent, I say roughly 5 minutes.
Okay, so if Dave Fravor is doing a slow circle around it, then I am just following him, and I might not even be aware that we're, turning or that he's visual.
Yeah. You had.
It's not until he starts an aggressive maneuver that I like, okay.
Right.
It's happening. Right. There's something going on, and that's.
Interesting, but I don't know. It's it's just like his account, like it kind of sounds like he's slowly descending towards it and it's coming up as he's descending.
Sure.
So I don't know if you would have seen it cross over the whitewater at that time. And yeah,
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard to.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, yeah, it's such a long time ago that you're not going to be able to recall it. And I remember you said that on when you were on Anderson Cooper, like memory changes. Yeah, it will be interesting to get a more detailed account from Dave, I guess. I mean, this is something that I've always wanted, is to get, like, I think you described it as the arrows version of the debrief, where you draw little diagrams with vector arrows and the turns and everything, getting that very, very detailed account of where the plane was and where he thought the object was. That would be really helpful in terms of either eliminating things or getting clues as to what they might have been. But
so I guess what is fascinating to me is like, do you think that you would actually be able to figure it out? I mean, this is like a cold case. This is like a
it's very hard.
Puzzle. Yeah.
There's like kind of a limited number of things that it might be if it's not some kind of weird hypersonic levitating craft. And the one thing that I thought as a theory, and this is very speculative, is that what Dave saw was something smaller than what he imagined it to be. And his perception of it as being a 40-foot long object was based on just him anticipating it being the same size as a hornet, because that's the typical thing he sees in the air. And he says in that report, like 20 to 35 feet, which is different again. But say he thought it was 40 feet wide, and it was actually 20 feet wide, long. And then that would give him this kind of illusion of it being twice away as he thought it was. And then if he was kind of descending to it and he thought it was down by the water, when it was actually kind of halfway between him and the water, when he descended towards it, it would look like it was coming up, even though it wasn't really moving. If it was something like, say, a 20-foot long target, to like a tow target, like a target balloon or something like that from San Clemente that had got loose or something like that. And then when he goes around the circle, if he's going around something that's in the middle of a circle, it's not really moving, but he thinks it's twice as big, it would look exactly like he's going around it like this. And then when he cuts across the circle, he thinks it's over here, he cuts across, and then it looks like it's whizzed off because he thinks it's done this, when really he's just done this. But obviously that's very speculative, and your perspective, of course, is from above from the same thing, but then you only saw the 10 seconds of it, which to you seemed like a very intense encounter. And so my theory, and stop me if this sounds completely crazy, is that you're seeing kind of like a similar illusion from different angles, like because you're just getting this 10-second brief encounter with no longer frame of reference, and he's got this more continued illusion of distance. So what I'm doing here is, with talking to you about it, is trying to get more info about whether that's even possible at all. Something just fell off the shelf. Sorry. That's strange. So
defies the laws of physics.
It's a poltergeist. So does that just sound ridiculous to you, that theory?
It doesn't. And again, I'm not wedded to any particular theory. I have in all of these interviews and all of these folks who have reached out to me, they say, what do you think it is? And I say, I have no idea. I have no idea what it was. I had no idea. I mean, I did come back to the ship on November 14, 2004. And for a minute it was pretty hot. I thought, were we vectored into some sort of live training range? And what we saw on the water was a submarine, and what was coming up, the Tic-Tac, was some sort of surface to air or subsurface to air missile. And I was pissed. I thought it might not have been intentional, but it was certainly negligent to vector us into a live training airspace. But then I was reassured that it was not a blue system, that we didn't have any subs in the area. and have been reassured many times since by the folks that are in the Pentagon, as part of the Office of Naval Intelligence, ATIP, and UAP task force over the years that know that that was investigated and that's been eliminated as a possibility. So that sort of reassures me that it wasn't a safety of flight issue that was self-induced by our own bumbling or negligence. So other than that, I haven't had any theories. I have an engineering degree as an undergraduate. I went to a math and science academy for high school. So I do like to have sound science backing up anything that that I endorse or that I press believe on. And by the same token, I don't think that we as a, I don't think that we have discovered everything that is to be discovered and unraveled all of the mysteries. I think Fermilab actually just recently announced something that was theoretical, but now they have a new force of nature that they announced that they proved in the lab.
Force.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it would be incredibly arrogant of us to say we know everything and there's nothing left to discover. But I don't know whether what we saw on November 14, 2004 was something new to discover, or whether it was some natural phenomenon, whether it was some human activity, whether it was some adversary, sneaking up on military exercise. So again, part of this engagement, part of why I agreed to talk to you, or why I'm, talking to folks on Twitter or doing some of these interviews, is to reduce the stigma.
Sure.
So that when folks see something strange, they will come out and report it up the appropriate channels. Maybe not necessarily have a debate on Twitter or a podcast on YouTube, but there's actually channels. So FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has a page in their FAR AIM manual. It's with my other stuff, but it's this big, thick flight rules and regulations. And there's a page for, what to do if you see a UFO. And I don't know that many people, I don't know if when you were doing your flight lessons, if you were introduced to that, but I
was not, and I never saw any in my very short flight training. But
yeah. I mean, you can Google it right now if you just Google FAA, FAR, FARAIM, and there's a phone number to call. And I would say, if you see something, no prank calls, but if you see something real, call. And there's also a DoD flight information handbook, the FIH, where if you see something strange, and it doesn't have to be aerial, it could be on the ground or in the water. We have these official reporting channels so that we can, maintain national security, national defense, especially in a post 9/11 world. That strange things. I think that even if people were watching 9/11 unfold, they were probably like, "This doesn't make any sense. What's going on?" Right? This using commercial airliners to crash into towers, and it didn't fit anyone's paradigm. And so, again, speaking up to say, "Hey, if you see something weird, don't just keep it to yourself, or don't be afraid that people are going to ridicule you or make fun of you, or aggressively debunk. And we should be curious, and we should all work together to look for answers." And
I totally agree. And I always, when I talk about like UAPs, I always raise the point that there's very real issues to do with any kind of unidentified object. Like your encounter is obviously a very real issue, and not something to be dismissed. I mean, really, the Navy wants to figure out what went on, and I'm sure they tried. They showed you it wasn't was it a blue operation, where they was friendly exercises. Has anybody suggested things that it might be that aren't advanced technology, like other ideas that sound at all plausible to you?
I mean, I've heard most of them from UFO Twitter.
Right.
Again, I don't follow it. I don't lie awake at night thinking about it. I think that we are, that this is past an opening, that we're not going to get any more information. the other, the other eyewitnesses might be able to provide a bit more to the encounter and help clarify the timeline, but I don't think we'll get closer to identifying what it was that day.
Sure.
I think if that was possible, that the folks in the Pentagon would have done that by now. What the other thing that I hope, besides reducing the stigma, is that we collectively do better about gathering more and better evidence. So whether it's having an actual gear kit of camera and recording devices and sensors, not just for military, but for average Joes who go out fishing for the day or go out camping someplace where there's clear skies, something where we all wring our hands and say, why isn't there better footage, or why is this just a grainy little black and white thing? Yep. Well, everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket, but I've been driving a lot recently, driving cross country. If I'm driving 80 miles an hour down the highway and I see Bigfoot on the side of the road, it takes me a minute to get my phone out and to get the camera function on and get the car slowed down or do a U-turn. And by the time I get back there, Bigfoot's wandered off into the woods. So, having your stuff ready and queued up so that you just can turn it on and focus it. And then also have, maybe everybody's, we're like a surveillance society where everybody's got a GoPro attached to them.
Oh, and you'll get conspiracy theories starting now. People will say that UFOs are just a way of getting cameras into everybody's cars.
Yeah,
or everybody's planes. but yeah, I hear what you're saying. Also, like more information.
Yeah, more being able to gather, collect the information, but then also a way to debrief it. So having standardized protocols for the debrief. I'm getting asked so many great questions now that I wish people would have asked me on November 14th, 2004.
Yeah, I wish so too.
Or November 16th, right? But if we had this sort of template where we could say, these are all the questions you should ask and answer after one of these encounters. And here's the database that you submit it to, where it can all be compiled and analyzed. I mean, it's 2021. If Amazon can tell me what I want to buy today before I even know I want to buy it, if they can read my mind with their algorithms and their tools, then I feel like we should have a clearinghouse to collect and analyze all of these incident reports.
Well, I know there are some initiatives to do that. There's a thing called Sky Hub, where people are trying to standardize kind of an installation of equipment that has a full sky camera and a pan-tilt zoom camera that automatically records things in the sky that look anomalous, and then use some kind of AI to filter out the false positives, and then just hopefully you'll get just the actual UFOs if they're out there. So the people are doing it.
Great.
So that's, it's just very good. You're gonna sign up for it. I know they would like your endorsement, because they're I think some of the people you might have heard of from the Nimitz, like Gary Voorhis and Kevin Day, are involved in it.
Okay.
So anyway, is there anything else you want to kind of share with everybody that you don't need to repeat to over and over again, that you want to get out there? Questions that people ask you all the time. Stop asking.
I would just, again, I'm here to say that I'm just a normal person, and I had this small encounter. I never intended to be talking about it 16 years later, especially on national TV or trending on UFO Twitter. But I would say that, there is no big conspiracy, that it's not some dark military program to try to manipulate the population, that the folks who are working on this program are actually spending more time now answering their FOIA requests than they are in actually doing their jobs, collecting and analyzing the reports that are anomalous. So I would say, give them a little break and let them do their jobs, and be patient with the report, and I'm sure that it will be underwhelming in many ways. I feel like a lot of the characters that are so enthusiastic about this, it's like they appreciate the anticipation more than they will actually enjoy the release.
Yeah,
I
fear that might be the case.
Yeah,
we'll
so yeah, we'll see. I don't have any insight, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of churn after the report is released. And again, if there's anything I can do to just reassure folks that
Sure.
you know, trust and confidence with the military and folks who volunteer. We're an all volunteer force. So if you raise your right hand and you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, you know, and there's a bond there that we take very seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's follow-up, I look forward to that with you. Thanks so much for the civil conversation. And,
thank you very much.
Good luck.
Lots of people will find it. Well, so, oh yeah, just, I mean, you very quickly said that you wouldn't entirely rule out my explanation, the parallax thing.
I don't know. I mean, it's just as plausible as any of the others that I've heard. Yeah.
Well, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yeah. Keep fighting the good fight, and good luck with all of your hunting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. And hopefully this will remove the need for some people to be asking you questions in the future. And I'll stick it up on YouTube and see what people say.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Alex. Thanks. Thank you very much. You have a good rest of your day. Bye.
You too.